They may be missing the familiar face of Andrew Johns and rookie David Siege, but the Newcastle Knights are keeping their heads high.
We've seen Andrew around the place and he's been fairly upbeat, which has helped us sort of get over the issue, and we've trained really well and I'm really happy with the way everyone's responded.
There are injury clouds over Robbie O'Davis, Craig Hall and Tamana Tahu. All three were at training this morning and will be given until Saturday to prove their fitness ahead of Sunday's clash. While coach Michael Hagan may be forced to reshuffle his back line, it's hoped the strength up front will match the Dragons' renowned forward pack.
We've got the talent and there's no reason why we can't do what we've set out to do. It's just probably our mental attitude we've got to get our heads around.
Taking their mind off the tough task this morning, the Newcastle HMAS Rugby Union side pacing it out on dry land ahead of the HMAS National Cup on Wednesday in Sydney.
It's good for our skills and a bit of extra training and a bit of a look at how rugby league do things as well.
The side will face Parramatta, Sydney, Cutterbull and Nowra in the annual knockout event. Colleen West, NBN News.
No, it's not an April Fool's joke. In fact, by as soon as Christmas, $100 e-tags could be compulsory for anyone, including country people, wanting to use the Sydney Harbour Tunnel to link to the Eastern Distributor.
I think it's outrageous. I don't believe they're serious about this. And to be forced to take the long way round, the less expensive way round, I don't think it's fair. It's not fair on the people who live north of the Hawkesbury.
For many motorists from central and northern New South Wales, the Harbour Tunnel is the main route to the airport and to the south coast. It also cuts off a significant amount of travelling time compared to using the bridge. But under the plan, regional motorists will have to pay for the privilege. It'll cost $100 even if you only use the tunnel once a year.
I think it's another revenue gainer on behalf of the state government. I think it's a very poor performance on their behalf to think that the consumer's going to have to be hit for $100 and may only use the facility 3 or 4 times a year.
All Hunter motorists questioned about the plan today believe the state government and the RTA have overlooked regional people.
I certainly wouldn't be in favour of paying the $100 myself. I'm not for it, that's for sure.
The Minister for the Hunter, Michael Costa, would not comment on the issue. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
More amazing scenes this week, and I think the old saying that fact is stranger than fiction certainly applies to rugby league over the last month. Crowd violence, 14 players on the field for the Broncos-Tigers match, and those horrendous images of Joey Johns on the Medicab holding his knee make up another crazy week. The NRL has retaliated, bringing in a new rule which punishes the clubs whose supporters instigate crowd violence. Now, the club will have 4 competition points deducted from them, and personally I think the NRL is really opening a Pandora's box on that one. Now, fines, more security, no more night games for the offending club, but to take points away is unrealistic. On to the footy, last week's individual performance by Danny Badiris in the Knights Parramatta match pushed up his reputation as not only being the best hooker in the world, but also one of the top 3 players in our game. His defensive efforts were inspirational, showed great determination with the ball, and with the likes of Ben Kennedy, Matt Gidley and Robbie O'Davis hold the key to steadying the ship for the Knights. And it's also fitting that in our current climate, the Roosters and the Panthers come together for tonight's grand final replay at Stadium Australia. The Roosters played a near-perfect game last week, and if they can get themselves up again, can win this game also. Saturday, Raiders, Cowboys, Sharks to win. Sunday's games have tipped the Storm, Warriors and the Knights. This week we want to hear what you have to say in our special viewer poll. And the question on everyone's lips, of course, is can the Knights win the competition without our Joey Johns? Now, to have your say, log on to www.nbntv.com.au. We'll have your results next Friday. Good luck for your tips. We'll see you next week.
Swum as an organised event since the 1960s, many of those who've made the journey say sharks have been in the lake for much longer than that. However, recent sightings and an April Fool's Day joke on a radio station seem to have discouraged many from swimming today. As the Westpac rescue helicopter did sweeps overhead, around 200 eventually took the plunge, down from the 350 who lined up last year. Started in two waves, the elite field headed out first, and it didn't take long for Hayden Jackson to open up a lead. A Swansea Belmont Surf Club member, the teenager was battling more from small chop than thoughts of sharks. Further back, it was a real battle for the women's honours, with distance swim specialist Shelley Clark being pushed all the way by Melissa Lair. Back up front, Jackson's winning time was slightly slower than last year, finishing in 44 minutes for the 3.7 kilometre journey.
My mum told me that there'd be sharks out there, but I wasn't really thinking about it, so I just had to keep swimming.
It was stroke for stroke though in the women's all the way to the line, as Lair pipped Clark for the win.
I just tried to stay with Shelley and then bring it home hard.
Away from the pressures of swimming, there is little Justin Norris enjoys better than the beach, and he was able to indulge after such a successful week at the Olympic selection meet. It included wins in the 400 and 200 metre individual medleys, and his favoured 200 metre butterfly.
That 200 fly is definitely the one I think I can really have a great shot at immortality in racing against and hopefully beating Michael Phelps.
Norris is likely to meet the American superfish in all three events should he opt to swim the busy schedule in Athens. And that remains the big question. After winning Olympic bronze last time, it's the big one he has in mind.
That Olympic gold is definitely the one that everyone's after and it means so much. So I'd probably rather have one shot at the Olympic gold and put all my eggs in one basket.
It's a big call given he set a Commonwealth record in the 400 metre IM at the trials and isn't far off world times in the 200. At the end of the day, hard work has offered the luxury.
60-year-old missionary Lance Gersbach from Caves Beach was brutally murdered on the island of Malaita in the Solomons last May. He'd been working at a church-run hospital with his family when he was attacked, apparently because of a land dispute. But 2 youths charged with the murder have now been acquitted in the Solomons High Court, angering Lance's widow Jean, who issued a written statement today.
Lance's brutal murder has left a huge hole in our lives. Nothing in this world can ever replace the loss we face and will continue to face every day for the rest of our lives.
The charges were thrown out after the Crown failed to make a solid case against the 2 accused.
It is my belief that the prosecution was either unable or failed to secure the cooperation of key people. It would seem to me that this has impacted significantly on the outcome of the case. I'm obviously distressed and concerned about that outcome.
It's believed the Director of Public Prosecutions in the Solomons will appeal the decision. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's that time of year when people go seafood crazy. Things are already getting hectic at the Newcastle Fish Co-op, with early birds trying to avoid the Good Friday rush. And the price-conscious consumer is in for a treat, with the cost of local produce slashed to compete with bigger supermarket chains that are charging minimal amounts for products imported from Asia.
Our normal price for king prawns would be $25 retail. They're down to $21. Things like that have to happen because we've got to compete with the imported prawns that are selling for $17.
For the bargain-hungry consumer, it's good news.
Oh yeah, very good, but it's not real good for the fishermen who depend on the Easter and Christmas period for their living.
Local prawn fishermen have been forced to take a $5 to $6 per kilogram cut in their payments to keep the prices competitive. Meanwhile, the upper half of the Hunter River has been reopened to prawn trawlers after a 1-week ban was lifted this morning.
We check the prawn catches and we weigh off that half kilo, then we close the river to trawling in that section of the river.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
The state government has revealed mineral resources will be rolled into a super ministry, including agriculture, fisheries and state forests, to be known as the Department of Primary Industry. Despite the changes, Kerry Hickey will remain Minister for Mineral Resources and his core portfolio will stay the same. However, the coal industry will experience a major shake-up in its royalty system. Instead of paying a fixed rate of tax to the government, coal company payments will now reflect the market price. So, with the price currently up, producers will pay more, but the government will collect less tax when prices come back down. The state government's potential earnings, an extra $44 million a year. Meanwhile, the land tax threshold has been abolished. It means all businesses in the Hunter will now have to pay the tax, starting from a minimum of $1,200 a year. The Hunter Business Chamber says regional businesses will be more affected than their city counterparts.
Will have a greater impact on the regional markets, areas where the property values are lower that previously weren't caught within the tax net.
It was a hard day's work at the beach today for this Korean film crew, with every effort being made to ensure the lighting was just right for a new commercial. Models were made to look their best, but that's all they really did. The violin playing was just an act.
And obviously, although Korea is a nice country, they don't have a scenery like this in Australia, especially in Newcastle, so that's the only reason it comes there.
At times, the break wall will be closed during the 4-day shoot.
This shoot we coordinated with Newcastle City Council and Newcastle Port Corporation and the waterways, and we're able to do it quickly and cost effectively, and we're getting that reputation. You can see the results.
But don't expect to be seeing the ad anytime soon. It's being made for Korea only. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News. It was a wake-up call like no other for students and staff at Lambton High this morning. The school hall temporarily transformed into a concert venue. Led by singer Toby Bull, Daylight Robbery took out the youth rock band contest in Sydney on the weekend, the same competition once dominated by Silverchair. As well as the title of Best Youth Band, the group of 13 to 15-year-old musicians walked away with a swag of prizes, including a day in a recording studio and the chance to play as a support act for a leading Australian band. And it seems the Lambton boys aren't the only ones that have found their musical form, with the annual Battle of the Bands attracting 5 groups from St Francis Xavier College. Genocide was named the overall winner.
Well, already this year, the night's depth has been pushed to an amazing limit. Heading into tomorrow's clash with the Warriors, Newcastle will have already used 26 players in 5 weeks, and 5 of those players are debutants. Now, when you consider that Penrith have only used 19 so far, it's easy to see why times are tough. Now, they have to put last week's thumping by the Dragons aside and focus on an improving Warriors outfit that's playing on their home soil. It's a big challenge for all, but in particular for Steve Witt, who will play his first top-grade match at 5'8". Now, he's a 21-year-old Toowoomba boy who played the juniors with the Eels before signing up this year as an understudy to Joey Johns, and it's needless to say that his opportunity has come through a little bit quicker than we all expected. But success tomorrow will hinge on the fitness of their experienced players, in doubt due to injury. Now, South Sydney, they head to Parramatta to take on the Eels, and it's great to see the Rabbitohs are within reach of winning 3 on the trot. Now, they haven't done this for a decade. It was 10 years ago, and it's ironic that they beat the same team, Parramatta, at Parramatta Stadium to do so. The Friday night games, well, they just keep rolling on. Tonight we see Darren Lockyer play in his 200th game when the Roosters take on the Broncos. The boys from Bondi have really been stretched in the forwards with Adrian Morley, Craig Fitzgibbon, Stuart Webb joining Craig Wing and Jason Kalis on the sidelines. Now, even with that talent drain, I'm still going to tip the Roosters to return to the winner's circle. In other games tomorrow, I'm tipping the Knights, Sharks and the Tigers. On Sunday, Penrith Bulldogs and Parramatta to get the points. Good luck for your tips. Have a great Easter, and I'll catch you next week.
It was around this time in 1941 when one of the most savage battles began to unfold in Tobruk, when the Rats counteracted Germany's advance, spending a gruelling 242 days in the North African garrison.
And during that time they had many skirmishes, but it prevented Rommel from going through and taking over Egypt.
There's 17 known Rats of Tobruk left in the Hunter and Northwest, even less at today's memorial, among them Jack Bertram, who lives to tell of the great sacrifice many made.
All those boys, young men, still lying there after over 60 years, I feel that they did a great deal for us. We who came back very fortunate.
And we're bound to keep on remembering, thanks to the local RSL sub-branch, many Rats gone, but far from forgotten.
It was too important an event in the annals of military history not to commemorate it each year.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
When Daniel Abraham stole the match winner in the dying minutes against the Warriors, you couldn't hide the joy from the Knights, nor the frustration from the home fans. Clint Newton had a bottle thrown at him after the try, while another spectator is seen harassing the bench. While earlier in the game, fullback Robbie O'Davis was hit in the head with an Easter egg. Warriors management acted swiftly on complaints and ejected the spectator who held the bottle, but Knights General Manager Ken Conway will still alert the NRL about the crowd behaviour. It hasn't overshadowed the performance, which earned players a well-deserved break after 5 weeks on the road.
We wanted to set ourselves maybe winning 3 or 4 out of 5 on the road, and we've achieved 3, so that was at least gives us a good starting point, and we can hopefully generate some wins on our home ground.
That will start with the Roosters on Sunday, which will unveil the first section of the new Eastern Grandstand as well.
The ACCC gave interim approval for the quota system in early March, allowing Port Waratah Coal Services to limit the size of shipments from each coal mine in a bid to speed up the loading of ships.
There was 50 odd ships there a month and a half ago. There is currently 38, I think, ships off the port, so it is having impact.
That system will remain in place until the end of the year, the competition watchdog claiming it will have a public benefit, including the reduction of costs for shipping delays currently paid by the industry. The Mine Workers Union opposes the move, arguing jobs could be lost, and it's now calling for an industry forum to address what it says has been a lack of consultation between the coal industry and Port Waratah Coal Services.
I was a bit disappointed with Port Waratah Coal Services not attending the meeting that I held last Wednesday.
The ACCC has refused a request from Port Waratah for the tonnage cutbacks to remain in place until December next year, claiming it's uncertain whether a vessel queue will even exist by then, given the dynamic nature of the market. The ACCC says it hopes Port Waratah and the coal industry will use the next 8 months to develop more efficient solutions to reducing vessel queues in the future. Colleen West, NBN News.
Fighting bushfires will be made easier with this new high-tech equipment known as FireScan, which can track fire speed and location, then feed the information directly to control centres and firefighters on the ground. It was today used by firefighters to map vegetation, topography and properties which influence bushfire risk between Cessnock and Sydney.
As you're going along, the image will scroll down there so you'll actually see what's happening.
The Rural Fire Service will use this information to plan containment strategies to ensure firefighters, tankers and aircraft are deployed in the best positions to protect communities. Linda Kincaid, NBN News. The Premier today had no sympathy for the Hunter's biggest export industry, which is facing a substantial increase in royalty payments for mining what's often described as black gold.
But in order to get out of the habit of whinging.
As a result of the state mini-budget, the industry will move from fixed royalty payments per tonne to market value-based charges, underground mines paying the state a 5 to 6% cut of their price, while open cut operators pay a premium of 7%. The government's move already has the Hunters' big miners warning it could affect their viability. Xstrata Coal says it is likely this will impact on our ability to continue to operate marginal operations and retain current employment levels across all our operations. Premier Carr today told companies to take up their complaint with Canberra.
The mini-budget was necessary, as everybody knows, because the Commonwealth Government cut $376 million a year out of grants to New South Wales. If they've got a complaint about it, they've got to go straight to Canberra.
Bob Carr rebulked Coal and Allied, which claims the royalty charges will increase government revenue by more than 2 to 3 times the government's estimate of $44 million. The Premier says his government won't negotiate and coal company payments will now reflect market prices. Linda Kincaid, NBN News.
This is one of the region's most unusual searches, and among only a few recorded incidents in Australia where police have scoured a garbage dump for clues. The latest search of a Wobbatip is the second in 3 weeks, as police inquire into the September 2002 disappearance of Belmont North man Damien Meredith. The operation has allowed police to change the focus of their investigation.
In the last week, we've certainly changed our investigation from that of trying to find Mr Meredith, and we are of the opinion now that Mr Meredith is in fact deceased and that he was murdered.
After Damien Meredith's disappearance 18 months ago, police now believe he was shot, initially buried at an undisclosed location. However, his body was later exhumed and then disposed of at a wobber. 3 cars, along with remains found at the gravesite and the tip, are now the subject of forensic tests.
We found a number of items, including bones, and we're still waiting on the results from forensic testing.
With the Awabba search about to conclude, Lake Macquarie detectives have publicly thanked those who've participated for speeding up the process.
The police and the SES and the Lake Macquarie Council have been absolutely fantastic, and I can tell you we wouldn't have finished it by tomorrow if they hadn't have given us a hand. So a big rap to those organisations.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Once a fixture at West's, Tony Hutton returned to his old nest as a seagull, but teammate Chris Bold attracted early attention, regathering his own kick chase to score. West just couldn't hang on to it early, and Lakes made them pay, Jacob Briggs strolling over for a 12-point lead. In a rare sight, Bolt struck the same place twice, again off a kick, as Lakes scored 18 points in as many minutes. Daniel Hagan and Shane Johnson got their heads together, while Lakes looked the goods, heading into half-time with a 22-16 lead. Needing points, West went to their go-to man, Garth Ross, and he added 3 for a season tally of 13, but it was the only joy for the Rosellas. Lakes hitting another gear to run away with the game, Jacob Briggs scoring a double. The Seagulls posting 10 tries in racking up a half-century and handing West its first defeat of the season.
No, it wasn't peak hour this morning, but at Maitland you'd be excused for thinking it was. In what's a love affair for some, they took a step back in time, reliving the glory days of rail travel. Not to be outdone, farm machinery from yesteryear showed they still have some puff. Nevertheless, it was this afternoon's big race which took centre stage with the punters. Who do you think would win out of a steam train and a vintage plane?
Oh, steam train, I think, for sure.
The Tiger Moth would win over a steam train.
Oh, I think the train must win, yes. It's going in a straight line. The aircraft's flying round in circles.
And it had to at the start, as the 3801 was running fashionably late for the race out of Newcastle. However, in a competition where the train sets its own rules, it simply wasn't enough, as the Tiger Moth was the first to reach Maitland, throwing down yet another challenge for next year. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
"35-year-old Rocky Hodgson's life came to an end in Maitland Road at Islington in February 2003 when he was stabbed in the chest during an argument about a mobile phone. 28-year-old Terence James Price was charged with murder, but today pleaded guilty in Newcastle Supreme Court to the lesser charge of manslaughter. The victim's mother and sister couldn't believe the charge was downgraded.
From the very beginning, we were under the impression this was murder.
Price was captured by 2 off-duty police officers while Hodgson lay bleeding in the doorway of a car spare parts shop. The officers also recovered the knife used to stab Rocky. Dorothy Hodgson says there's been no justice.
I thought the law was there to support us, and I really feel that not just our families let down, It's Rocky, my son, that's been left down, the one that we will never see again. We'll never say, Mum, I love you. He's gone forever, and I just don't feel that Rocky is getting justice.
Price will be sentenced in June. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
On a new bike this season, Stoner was keen as anyone to see how it would shape up in the real thing. Sitting third after a good start, it was a three-way duel up front for much of the first half of the race. Moving into second, on lap 16, he made his move to take the lead. But it didn't last long. Stoner pegged back and late in the race actually fell to fourth. Italy's Andrea Dovizioso taking the win before Stoner snuck home on the last turn to claim third. A spot on the podium, not a bad way to start the season for both Ryder and his debut team.
KTM would be delighted with that.
Wheelchair athlete Kurt Fernley has smashed the course record by 14 minutes to easily win the Canberra Marathon. Leading from the outset, he pushed alone for much of the 42.2 kilometre course to race home for the win. All this after a week-long camp at the AIS. No such luck for Eliza Stankovic though. She suffered 2 flat tyres and was forced to pull out. It's been a great swim meet for Maitland's Nick Donald at the Australian Age Championships in Perth. The 15-year-old made it 5 gold medals overnight when he won the 400-metre freestyle. It capped a great weekend with personal best times in his 4 other victories, and it helped his club, New Swim, claim the overall club point score. It wasn't hard to raise a smile from Tamana Tahu, the winger's selection, the best news he's heard in days.
All week I was stressing out about this side. You know, a lot of Sydney papers and that, they never picked me in the side.
With the coach keen on maintaining combinations, he'll join Matt Gidley in what's become a formidable partnership. Gidley already sure to be centre of attention on home turf.
Something I might never get the chance to do again, so I'm definitely going to enjoy the occasion.
Together with Danny Badeiras, the pressure is on from family and friends just to watch them.
I think my mum and dad are coming down. I don't know what they're doing, but my brothers and all his mates are coming, so yeah, the orders are in.
Test selection may have been distraction enough from the disappointment of yesterday's result against the Roosters, but teammates couldn't escape it.
Maybe a couple of calls up might have went our way at the end of the game, but unfortunately they didn't, so it could have been a turning point.
2 points down in the dying minutes, and crucial calls went against them. A second tough call quickly after, and the game was gone. Leaving a fuming coach who refused to answer questions on the referee's performance, but with plenty of his own for the NRL. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
The 12-month trial will explore the effectiveness of a combination of vitamins and herbs which are thought to help in the reduction of liver damage caused by hepatitis C.
I've found that this group of herbs and vitamins have reduced liver function tests and reduced viral load, so I'm wanting to put it to the scientific test.
Patients undergoing the trial will receive one of 2 herbal tablets, one containing St Mary's thistle, an antioxidant known for its ability to reduce liver disease, the other a combination of 10 various antioxidants. The patient's blood will then be tested to determine the extent of the virus. Professor Robert Beatty, who's supervising the trial, says hepatitis C patients are looking for an alternative to the current viral medication.
Because there's a lot of people out there who are not happy to go onto the antivirals we can offer them because of side effects.
Those side effects include birth defects, anemia, depression and skin rashes. There are 16,000 new infections of hepatitis C in Australia each year, with rates increasing. That's roughly one person every half hour contracting the disease.
It's reaching epidemic proportions, and so it's really good to have a range of treatments that people with hepatitis C can actually choose from.
People with hepatitis C interested in being part of the study can call 0414 453 243.
It wasn't that long ago when Premier Bob Carr pledged his personal support for the construction of a multi-purpose shipping terminal in Newcastle, the likes of which would rival Sydney's Port Botany. But it's far from a done deal, with Newcastle yet to convince both the public and private sectors.
We've got a site, we've got development consent, we've got the deep water that will support it, and we believe that there's a market that will respond to this opportunity on that site.
A site which, in the meantime, remains bare, but the Port Corporation did reveal today that tenders are being called, with some sort of activity expected by 2008.
We're after a good project, not a hasty project.
It remains a nervous wait for all players while the state government tables the results from this inquiry.
There's a lot of jobs at stake, there's a lot of extra business for the region in it, and at the same time there's infrastructure concerns.
But in Newcastle's favour, those who live around Port Botany are expected to reject its expansion, as the environmental impact on Sydney is considered to be much greater than what we could expect here. It's no doubt on tomorrow's agenda at the Sydney leg of the inquiry. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
Greenpeace flagship, the Rainbow Warrior, arrived early this morning. Dozens who lined the harbour getting the message.
I think it's really more about just an awareness-raising thing. Maybe people didn't know that genetically engineered corn comes into Newcastle Harbour.
Others not too sure.
And it was just really beautiful seeing a boat with a dove and a rainbow.
Security was on heightened alert following yesterday's Greenpeace stunt in Brisbane, with activists branding a ship from the US importing genetically engineered soy. No such stunts today. Instead, Greenpeace shifted 2 tonnes of organic soybean from their ship, transporting it to Ingham's Cardiff headquarters.
Ingham's are the largest poultry producer in the country, and as far as we've been able to research, are the largest single user of GE in Australia.
Greenpeace operators began dumping the goods in Ingham's driveway, while organisers were led inside for close negotiation. The standoff continued for more than an hour before Ingham agreed to let the activists deliver the goods. It's unclear whether Ingham will use the organic chicken feed. Linda Kincaid, NBN News.
One of these drivers almost wound up in hot water around midday today, caught with a blood alcohol level of 0.045, just under the legal limit. Drivers in Lake Macquarie are among the worst in the state when it comes to driving under the influence. One driver in every 50 tested is over the limit, compared to the statewide average of 1 in 80.
It sends a message to us that people just aren't getting the message that they can't drink and drive. That's the purpose of this operation, is to ensure they do get the message, and if they're not doing the right thing, we're going to catch them.
The latest month-long blitz will cover the entire Lake Macquarie Council area, including the F3 freeway. The City Council is also getting in on the act.
And we'll be giving drivers a bag. Those who register a negative test will receive some information on drink drive material, what is a standard drink, and options to drink driving, such as drinks without dramas and using public transport and so on.
Police hope the blitz will save lives by keeping drunk drivers off the road.
There are 3,500 hectares of alligator weed in Australia. 3,000 of those are in Port Stephens. The noxious weed is known for its ability to choke waterways like this one in Raymond Terrace. An expansive root system traps algae, creating a blanket effect which practically wipes out other plant and animal species.
It clogs up drains and it's invaded pastures. Very competitive with other plant species, so it's not a desirable stock feed.
A flea beetle, which feeds on the leaves and stalks of the plant, was brought over from South America in the 1970s, but it had little effect. In fact, there's no known way of eliminating the weed completely. Scientists from New Zealand have united with Australian experts in an effort to find a long-term solution to the problem.
The impacts of this weed in New Zealand are very, very similar to the impacts it has in Australia. So we hope that the solution to the problem will be very similar as well. So there's obvious opportunities for collaborative research.
The group has been working together in Raymond Terrace to come up with a weed management and control plan which will be implemented in both Australia and New Zealand. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
You don't all need to be the same body shape or the same braveness even. There's people just spinning hoops on their fingertips, but that's circus.